Today we're going to be talking about percents, and this is a review. This should have been a big focus last year, but we do need to review it and make sure you understand percents. And percents are a special ratio. They just relate everything to out of 100. We have a lot of little rules to learn that I hope you already know, but if you want to change from a percent to a decimal, the easy way is to move the decimal point 2 places to the left. So in other words, we have a percent like 16%. Remember, that's really 1600ths, so you just move the decimal 2 places to the left and it becomes 0.16 as a decimal. And to go in the reverse, to change from a decimal to a percent, you move the 2 places to the right, which is like multiplying by 100. So again, if we have 0.25, we want to change it to a percent. Remember, that's like 25 hundredths, 25 over 100, it would just be 25%. To change from a percent to a fraction, you put it over 100 and simplify. So in other words, if we have something like 12%, well, we know that means 12 out of 100. What goes into both those? 4 will, so you get 3/25. If you want to change from a fraction to a percent, there's a couple of ways. One way is to set it equal to x over 100 and solve, or you change it to a decimal first by dividing and then move the decimal 2 places to the right. In other words, if we wanted, this is one I hope you know anyway, but 1/4, if we take 1 divided by 4 on the calculator, or just do it, you're going to get 0.25 and then use the change decimal rule and you're going to get 25%. So that might be the easier way, but if you want to set up a proportion, you can always use that method. So let's put these rules to work. So these ask us to write it as a percent, so please make sure you put your percent sign. So the rule says move the decimal 2 to the right, so if I do that, I'm going to get 54%. Here it's right here, so if I move it 2 to the right, I'm going to get 70%. Here when I move it over 2, it's going to be 0.8%. Here when I move it over 2, it's going to be 390%. And here, remember, it is at the back, so when I move it over 2, it's going to become 100%. So just move the decimal 2 to the right. Now we're going in the reverse, we're changing it to a decimal, so we're going to move it 2 to the left, so it would be 0.24. This one was here, so when I move it over 2, it becomes 0.08. This one would be 0.183. This one would be 1.32. And this would be 0.008. So remember, we're moving it 2 places to the left on all those. So even though we're going to have a lot of problems for homework, they go pretty quickly. These do take a little bit more time because you're going to have to probably do some reducing. But percent means out of 100, remember, so to write it as a fraction, make sure you read the directions so you know what you're doing. You're going to put 55 over 100, but you do need to reduce that. What goes into both those? Well, 5 will. 5 goes into 55, 11, and here 20. 43%, you put 43 over 100. Anybody know what kind of number 43 is? It's a prime number, so the only thing goes into it is 43 and 100, so you cannot reduce this one. Here we're going to put 140 over 100. One of the easiest ways to simplify this is divide them by 10. That really knocks that 0 off, so you get 14 over 10. And then 2 will go into both those, and you get 7 over 5. And I do prefer that you leave it as an improper fraction. Alright, this one here has got a lot of steps in it. Start by what does percent mean, put it over 100. But you can't really have a decimal, or you should not leave a decimal in a fraction. So to get rid of this decimal, I'm just going to move the decimal over 1 to the right. It gives me 35, but if I do that to the top, I got to do the same thing to the bottom. So it becomes 35 over 1,000, and now I need to reduce that. 5 goes into both those, and you would get 7 over 200 as the answer. Now we want to write these as a percent, so the couple of ways. One way we said was set it equal to x over 100, which I'm going to do in this one because it's easy. What do you do to 25 to get 100? You multiply by 4, so we need to multiply 18 by 4 to get the answer, and we're going to get 72%. Now you don't have to do it that way. You can use this other method, which is divide. If I divide 7 by 8, I'm going to get 0.875, and then I'd have to move my decimal over 2 to get 87.5%. Again, I like this method better, especially since we're using a calculator. So if you divide 1 by 6, you're going to get 0.16 repeating. So now when I move my decimal over, I'm going to get 16.6 repeating percent. Here, if I divide 12 by 5, I'm going to get 2.4, and then I move my decimal over to get 240%. Now that we know all those, we're going to use that to solve some percent problems here. And there's basically 2 ways you can solve percents. You can use the proportion method, which if you don't understand, this might be the easiest way, although you do have to remember some rules, or you can use the equation method. The equation method is easier one time especially, but I would suggest most of you use the proportion method. And the proportion method says, step 1, find your percent, put it over 100. Step 2, find what follows of, and it will always go on the bottom. Now there will be occasions when there's not an of or there's more than one. Another thing to think of what goes on the bottom is the total. And then whatever's left goes on top, and sometimes we refer to it as the part. And that's where this comes from. The equation, rate is your percent, but you must write it as a decimal. Base is the total, what follows of, and P is the part, and that's what's left in that. So I'll do both of these, or these both ways. So what percent? X over 100. Second step, find what follows of. In this case it's 40, that goes on the bottom. 18 goes on top. Using my cross products, I get 40x equal 1800. Again, the calculator will do all the math for you here. And when you divide 1800 by 40, you get 45. It did say what percent, good thing to label it percent. If I want to use the rate times base equal part equation, I don't know my rate, my base is 40, and my part is 18. So I would need to divide both sides by 40. I get 0.45, and then I change it into 45%. Okay, in this problem, again, I'm going to use the proportion method first. Find my percent, put it over 100. Find what follows the word of. 35 would go down here because it follows of. What number? We don't know. X goes here. So 100x. If I multiply 35 times 24, I get 840. I hope you know the easy way to divide by 100, which would be move my decimal over 2 to the left, and it would give me 8.4. Again, if you want to use rate times base equal part, this is the one that's usually easier on. 24% as a decimal is 0.24. My base is 35, equal the part. And it'll take you directly to this answer. So it is faster on that type of problem. And the third type, 55%, so I'm going to put 55 over 100. What follows the word of here? Well, what number? We don't know. So x, and then 66 would have to go on the top. 55x, hopefully you wouldn't use your calculator to say 66 times 100, because you just move your decimal over 2, which in this case adds 2 zeros. Divide by 55, and you're going to get x equal 120. Again, if you want to use rate times base equal part, my rate as a decimal is 0.55. My base, I don't know, is b, or if you want to call it x, equals 66. So you divide by 0.55 to get your answer there. And that's it.